Together School is one of my favorite parts about homeschooling. I think Together School is what gives us all the rich memories, the things that make me say, I am so thankful we get to homeschool. Now, Together School just means exactly what it sounds like. All of the kids are together at the table or maybe in the living room, and we do all of the subjects together. It doesn't matter how old. So this is everything from the baby all the way up to the high schooler. So Together School could encompass a lot of things. In fact, for my kids, I sometimes mess up the word and I just call everything that we do Together School, whether that's Bible, history, science, whatever. But in this session, I really want to talk about those fun and special things that you don't get to do. So we're going to hold off on history and science until later. And again, I do them together with most of my kids. But Together School includes maybe even the little ones, okay? So I might even talk about Bible later today and just hold off and not really dive too deep into there. But our Together School really starts as soon as we're eating breakfast. So you're eating breakfast together, right? And then what do we do? Well, at our home, we usually do Bible, and then we go off and do the chores. So Bible is a part of my Together School, and I'm going to come back to that in a second. But then we go off and do chores, and chores are really done since we're all doing it at the same time together, especially when my children are younger, we're doing them together. So then we come back to the table or living room, and by the way, you don't have to do it just like this, but we come back in and then we continue on with Together School. Now, there have been seasons which I switched that order all around, depending on who's at what age and what needs we have, what nursing babies, etc. So don't get hung up on that. But Together School is basically you're all together, whether in the living room, sitting on the couch or on the floor or at the table. And again, it just depends on what you like. It could even be outside. We love to go outside for Together School. We just don't get to do it that often in Michigan. So here are some of the things you might include in Together School. So I was brainstorming some of these, and I have down Bible, which again we'll talk about later, memorization, Hebrew, poetry, geography, music, art, read alouds and chapter books, manners, quotations that we want to learn about, maybe memorize, chore time, like I said, life skills, important conversations that we need to have. There's so many of important conversations, and sometimes I think of them ahead of time. I'll come back to that. Driver's ed. Yeah, driver's ed is fun to do in Together School. Just because the little ones aren't driving yet doesn't mean they don't love to talk about it. Character development, biographies of important people we want to learn about, watching YouTubes. And so into this area, we're going to put history and science. And again, I'll talk about those later. So Together School could cover so many things. There's a couple problems that come in with that. First of all, I do have things I want to do beyond Together School, and some of these I might do together, like history. I have 180 days in my history lessons that I want to get through. Science, same way, especially for the kids that are getting older, 4th, 5th grade and up. Let's see, we have math, we have phonics, kids that are learning to read, grammar, writing, essays, speech class, all of these things. And the problem with Together School is that it's so much fun that it likes to expand. And so the hours can go by and you look at the clock and you're like, oh my word, 15 minutes till we are supposed to eat lunch and we haven't done anything else but Together School today. And that can be really fun, but it's not going to help you accomplish some of the things, the goals that you set earlier, saying this is what we want to accomplish this year. So this is what you have to do, Mom. You have to take a deep breath and you have to say, I have 13 years with this child. If you're starting them in kindergarten to 12th grade, that's 13 years. I don't have to do it all today. I know you know what I'm talking about. All of the subjects sound so fun, so exciting. So how do you decide what you're going to do, and how does that work? Well, first of all, in my planner, I have sticky notes. And while we're doing school, whatever it is, all different subjects, a lot of times this happens to me in history and science specifically. I think, I would love to talk to the kids about the Northern Lights. I think the Northern Lights are going to happen later this week. I saw that on Facebook. Man, we got to get that. We should drop it all and just talk about the Northern Lights. Well, maybe. Or you could just take your little sticky note and write Northern Lights and then stick it on there. I have a spot in my binder, in my teacher notebook, that I put that, and I'm going to come back to that later. So I really encourage you to keep sticky notes or something and put it in your teacher binder. You need your own binder, teacher, and you need to have all your notes and ideas in that spot. Now, another place I put ideas is on my phone. And because I'm just thinking of ideas for my kids at all different kinds of times, and I want to make sure I remember them. So let's talk about what we're going to do to prepare for a together school each day. First of all, you need to have a place for it. And so I'm going to put some pros and cons, okay? One of the pros and cons of the living room is it's just doggone comfortable. You can just spread out and it's just comfortable there, whether you have, couches or whatever. And I'm not going to talk about outside, but outside would be a similar thing. So the pros of it is it's comfortable and it's a really great place to read books and to talk about things. Now, I also like the dining room table, the kitchen table, you might say. It's not quite as comfortable, but there are some benefits of there. First of all, you might be able to have each child and each person have their own assigned seat. And there's a reason that school teachers do this. That's because, you've got a boundary for each child. Each child knows where his or her spot is, and I would recommend that you keep them the same every day. So you've got these chairs, and each person sits on one. Now maybe you have benches or something in your house, so you're not going to get quite that benefit, but you might say this middle spot at the table is your spot. I always think it's so fascinating to see how creative people can be with a kitchen table or dining room table. One of the things I've seen is for a mom who had a really beautiful dining room to take a plastic tablecloth, just a plain one that you can get, like what I mean by plain is a clear plastic one, and you can go to like a fabric store and they can sell you vinyl by the foot, and you can make yourself a custom tablecloth. And the cool thing about it is that you can take permanent markers and you could put which spot is which, and you could say this is Susie's spot and this is Johnny's spot, and so on. But you could also, really cool, you could put a map under the plastic tablecloth and then put the tablecloth over it, and everyone can see the map, but you don't have to worry about spilling things. We have drinks at our table, so we, water bottles and such, we do have that. So we sometimes have spills. So I like that everyone has their spot, and I like that you could have a high chair. So it works fine whether you're in the living room or at the dining room table. There are pros and cons to each of those things, but I kind of enjoy the table. Another thing is I like when my kids get to draw and color while I'm reading a book. And sometimes that's easier at the table, although it works just fine in the living room too if everybody's got like a clipboard or something, or maybe you have hardwood floors. So I guess it doesn't matter. But one of the things I have noticed is that we should do it the same every day, except for those special times like when we go outside or go to a park or something. Just having that routine, that sameness about life, where the children know it's time for school, and so we go to our spot, and this is my spot, and these are my crayons that I use every day. It's not that we shouldn't let them share, but sometimes for school purposes, to eliminate some of the distractions, it's just easier for each child to have their own things. And however you do that, whether they have a zipper pouch with crayons and pencils and stuff stuck inside their 3-ring binder, or maybe you have a little crayon box, or maybe you are going to have them down the center of the table and everyone can share the colored pencils. But I know in our home, if we can reduce the need to share at that point, I can teach sharing some other time. I like to have fewer distractions during together school. So those are the pros and cons. My children, as they go into the teen years, actually prefer the dining room table. They say they get a little sleepy in the living room, and I do too. As a mom, I remember reading a book to my kids and falling asleep out loud, while I'm reading out loud. And we were in the living room. So, we have done it so many different ways over the years. I don't think there's a right or wrong. It just depends on your situation, but I do recommend that you kind of keep it the same as much as possible so your kids know what to expect. I would recommend that you have a set time for together school every day. So it might depend on how you do breakfast. As my children enter the teenage years, and I don't have any little ones anymore, we have everyone making their own breakfast. And so they come in and make their own breakfast, and they know that they have to be done with breakfast, their dishes in the kitchen, be dressed, all of those things by a certain time every day. And so we're going to start school at this time, and we are going to be consistent. But you know who I find has the biggest trouble starting school on time? Yeah, it's me. I just have so many other things I want to do with my time, and so I get distracted. And so my kids are actually a lot better about being on time with school than I am. So the other thing that I would recommend is that you do have a clock wherever you're doing Together School. Besides the fact that we're going to talk about clocks in math time, clocks are important, Mom, so that you know when to quit. Remember that long list of things that I just read about all the ways you can do, all the things you could do in Together School? And again, you could keep going and never get to anything that was actually planned out for you to accomplish this school year. So I recommend you do keep one eye on the clock and say, you know what, whatever we do, however much fun we have, whatever rabbit trails we go down, we have to stop by this time because we have got other things we need to do. I also want to say that before we go on to some of the other subjects, sometimes we really like to take a break, a little recess, because we've been thinking and laying around or sitting at the table coloring while Mom waxes eloquently on her soapbox about some subject. And so we need a break. We need a little snack, maybe a little drink, and a little chance to run around outside, and just a time to clear the cobwebs. So I would recommend that you have the crayons, the pencils, the colored pencils, the pens, the Sharpies, the scissors, the tape, the hole punch, all of those things available right where you're doing Together School time. Just because if you're on a topic and you're having fun with it, and now you can't find something, it's going to really put a damper on it to take a big pause for everyone looking for something. So keep your stuff together where it belongs. Stay organized. Don't let those things that you use in school time be used at other times. Those are for Together School. And if you need another pair of scissors somewhere in the house later, then maybe think about investing in a second pair of scissors so that the ones for school stay in school time and you don't ever have to go hunting for them, okay? Don't allow the little ones to grab stuff out of Together School time's spot, okay? I would also consider for you, Mom, having what a lot of companies call a Together School basket or a morning basket. Some people call it that. And this is just simply a spot for you, Mom, to put your things that you're going to be teaching to your kids. I have a drawer this year, and that's where I'm putting all my Together School stuff. It's just in one drawer, and I know it's really close to my table, so it works really well for me. But other years I've had a crate, I've had a big, huge tote bag. I like that one for going to the park. I've had an actual basket that's pretty, and I've had it by the couch. So there have been a lot of different ways, but you need a spot for things, you know, everything in its place and a place for everything, right? For the little ones, consider having a basket or something that has toys in it. And these could be quieter toys, so not the toys that have all the singing and the, you know, the bells and whistles, but these are your quiet puzzles. The like Montessori toys are awesome. Those are really great for quiet play. You might have some cars, but don't allow too many sound effects coming out of little boys' mouths. You can say, right now we're reading, so your car needs to be quiet. He can be noisy later. But also I'm thinking like Legos. I love Legos, or other kinds of construction toys that you put together, and you those are great. Things that are not too loud, and this is where, if it gets distracting, if a child cannot handle playing while you're reading, because they're doing too many sound effects, or they start doing somersaults across the floor, or they're wanting the toy that their brother has and they're going to fight about it, then they lose the privilege of having toys, and they have to sit there. With my kids, if they did that and they lost the privilege, it was fold your hands, sit, I want you to cross your legs and sit up straight with your hands folded and listen. And they had to do that day, and that was no more playing, no more coloring. If they cannot handle coloring while you're doing your school teaching, then they lose that privilege. It is a privilege to color. It is a privilege to play. They don't deserve it. So if they don't earn it with good behavior, with whatever, you know, good behavior means for you at that moment, whether that's being quiet enough that others can listen, or taking things from other kids, or not staying in the spot that you've told them to stay in, then they lose the privilege. But even little ones, what about toys for them? They don't necessarily have to hear every last thing about geography. You know, that you're covering South Africa today, and you're all getting so involved in the politics of South Africa and the religion and the culture and so on, and the 2-year-old saying, I don't really care. It doesn't mean that the 2-year-old can't be there with you, playing quietly with her toys. Again, she should learn to show consideration to others, and it doesn't even mean that she has to stay right there. So one of the things I like for together school time is to have a gate, so that maybe we have an area of the house. I don't want them to go back down that hallway towards the bedrooms. I want them to stay, where I can kind of see it's close enough. I don't want them to be getting into the bathroom and pulling the toilet paper off if it's a toddler. But so I want them to stay in this general living area, but it doesn't mean they have to stay right there next to me sitting the whole time either. I would not expect a young child to be able to do that, or that's not really even good for them. So gates and things like that are super helpful. Sometimes I did put my older babies in a high chair and they could color, but maybe not the whole time. Maybe they could only handle that for a few minutes, and then I'd let them play. So I hope this is making sense, some of my ideas for together school, and most of all, the equipment that you need to have. So thinking through school supplies at a homeschool does not just mean crayons and scissors, but toys for the baby to play with, and baskets to put things in. Those are just as much school supplies as anything else. So your school supply shopping list might look a little different for together school than, say, a third grade teacher at the local public school. Trying to think if there's anything I'm missing. I know for little ones also sometimes when we had a house that the living room was pretty big, sometimes I would take a big blanket and put the toys on the blanket and have the child stay on the blanket, but they could play with whatever they wanted to on the blanket. So there's lots of ways, you could have a little pack and play there, but I don't know if I would probably do that for together school time. To me, I wanted it to be a little more free for the younger ones, as long as they can earn it. And then there were some days that they just wanted to snuggle with me, or maybe I could nurse a child while reading a book, and hey, that works. Again, the benefit of having a basket with all of my supplies ready to go is that I can nurse a baby and pull a book out of a basket at the same time. So just giving you ideas, fun things you can do for together school. Another thing for together school, as you come up with ideas, I told you about the sticky notes and putting ideas on, is think about developing a good home library, because no curriculum is going to contain everything you want to teach your children. So you need to invest in things to add to your home library. And maybe you don't have the space for it. If you're living in a RV right now, you're probably not going to have the largest space for a home library. That's probably when I would grab my Kindle and put books on that. But for those of you that are in a situation where you have some space for books, here are some things that you want to add to your library. And it's not just books here, but let's start with those. So you're going to want fiction books, and it is difficult to find good fiction books for homeschoolers that are not full of magic or things like bad attitudes or offensive things that we would not want to have in our home, because we're trying to teach them to obey the Father and to have right and good attitudes. Now, that doesn't mean those books don't exist. It means that you are going to have to pay attention. So when you are talking to your friends and they start talking about a certain book series that their kids are reading, and you can ask those questions: was there any magic? Anything that you might be offended by or not want in your home? And if it passes the test, write that title down and get it, because there are so few good books. Get them. And honestly, you could share those with other homeschoolers if you know of good books. It's a topic that is constantly of interest. So go out on social media, tell me, let us know the good books that are there, and then invest in them. The more we buy from those authors, the more books they're going to write. And so we really want to support them. As far as other books for your home library, I really recommend a good, healthy supply of nonfiction books. And this would include everything from your picture books, and it doesn't have to be even children's picture books. They could be picture books that take them to other places, like the coffee table books that let you see different cultures, and those are awesome. School textbooks. If you're at a thrift store and you see a textbook and you're like, I would never use a textbook with my child, I want you to encourage you to get that 50-cent textbook that no one wanted and stuck in the thrift store, and put it on your shelf at home, because they're fantastic for looking up things. So let's say you have a question in science and you just are so curious about it. You can pull that book off the shelf and say to your child, look through this, try chapter 3, and they're going to flip through the pages. My children, even before they could read, love to look through science textbooks. And it's not just science. I love to collect textbooks. It is very fun for me. But I find there's never a book that I don't learn something from. And those, sometimes I even collect like college textbooks and put them on my shelf, and it seems like they're always available at thrift stores. I would also look for old books. If you find antique books, look through them, because not every antique book is good. So you do have to use wisdom and discretion, but generally speaking, there are more good old books than new books. And so I love collecting them. And sometimes I'll go to an antique mall and just hit on the jackpot of all these great old school books from, the early 1900s or whatever. And I just absolutely love finding them. So keep your eyes out for them and put them out where your children can actually use them. And also don't neglect putting adults books that you would use as an adult, not bad books, but good books for adults. All kinds of reference books, theology books, cookbooks, life skills books, all of those, herb making books, all of those kinds of books. Put them where your children can access them, because your children have free time. In fact, they have more free time at this part of their life until they graduate from high school, or even maybe sometimes early high school years. Suddenly they're getting a job and they're getting busy. Get them looking at books and share the books that you love with your children. Now, beyond books, I would also recommend that you get good artwork. It's so nice to teach your children about artwork without ever having to have an art class, teaching them about famous paintings and so on. And one of the things I like to do is get a plastic sheet protector and put a different piece of artwork in it every month. So as we're going about our life, we can talk about the artist, we can talk about the time period in which the artist lived, the country they lived in, what might have inspired them to paint that picture or whatever, kind of artwork it is. So I really enjoy doing that. And you can sometimes even get like children's flashcards or memory games, things like that. Any kind of artwork is fun to have on hand. Puzzles are a great way to bring artwork in. And I would also include music, especially classical music, music that has a good structure to it, and teaching them a little bit about music theory. As you hear little bits online, show it to your kids. So sometimes I joined a music theory group on Facebook, and it's so fascinating because they'll put these little bits about music theory in there, and I'll be like, wow, I did not know that. And I love to put those on my sticky note and remember to talk about during Together School time. So that's the kind of tidbits that I like to save. Or maybe you'll hear a fascinating piece about a country, I love to study geography and collect atlases for our home library. And then as I hear little tidbits, we'll put them on a sticky note, talk about them in Together School time. But it's also very nice to have some of those books on our shelf. We have a lot of books specifically about Europe and Scotland and England, and we have kings of Europe, and just our kids know a lot more about that part of the world because we've collected books about it. And so it's really fun to put that in. I would also put board games and all kinds of table games that you can play as a family. And I'm not saying you're going to necessarily have time to play the games during Together School time, but that's a great thing to add to your home library. We'll talk a little bit more about games in an upcoming session, specifically with math. I would put things to help your children grow in their leadership abilities. Maybe they're participating in a local co-op and learning, some leadership skills. And I would put books that as much as you can in your home library to help them out. And life skills, I've already mentioned that just a little bit, but we have some fun ones on our shelf. I'm trying to think. We have sewing, we have car mechanics, we have a book that is just full of basic skills that you would need if we didn't have electricity and running water. And I'm not saying that we're necessarily prepping, but it is really nice to have those books on hand. And I tried to have my children enjoy looking through them so that they can find areas that they might be more interested in than others. And then that gives us ideas of things we can learn in Together School time or just in our free time. So the home library and having all of your equipment, all of your school supplies baskets, specific spots and times, clocks, that's all going to bring you to the time that you're going to work on school together. what do you do in together school time? In our together school time, after we've done Bible, we usually start memorizing, and we might memorize verses in Bible time, and we have some verses that we also memorize in history and some of the other subjects. And I like to keep a 3x5 card with those verses in my together school basket, so that, or this year my drawer, so that I can remember to go through those memory verses. Now, the nice thing about putting them on a 3x5 card or a flash card like that is that you can go back and review some of the ones that you have already learned previously, and that holds them in their long-term memory. So sometimes we'll learn we'll say this week's memory verse, and then I'll just randomly pick a card from before, and I'll be like, okay, do you guys remember what this verse is? And we'll say it together. The same is true for Hebrew. A lot of times I don't have time with my children to have an entire class of Hebrew, a 45-minute class or whatever every day, but we can just review some flashcards or review the letters of the Aleph Bet, or sound out a couple things. So we have at Foundations Press some books, 10-minute reviews that you can do for Hebrew every day. I don't do it every day, but we have those in our Together School basket or in my drawer. And those are just there for today. You know what, guys? Let's just do this exercise on page 6. We're going to do it together, and we can do that, and that's fun. Poetry is fun. I love doing poems with my children. Sometimes I do silly ones. Sometimes I do more serious ones. And we have some poems at Homeschooling Torah, so that we can help you out in finding good poems. But you can just get some books of poetry and put them in your home library, and then just pick out a couple that you're going to read to your children. We like to sing songs. We don't do it all the time, but sometimes we'll spend 2 or 3 weeks learning a song really, really well. And that reminds me, one of the things our kids like to do, and my husband really enjoys it, is to have a weekly show and tell time where we can tell our family, especially extended family, grandparents and so on, some of the things that we've been learning in Together School. And one of our favorite times to do that is on Erev Shabbat. And it's really nice to say, okay, Grandma, would you like to hear the song that we've been working on? Or Grandma, would you like to hear this funny poem? Oh my goodness. Here's another fun thing that's fun to stick in a Together School basket, and that's a joke book. Just sometimes when you're having a day that's a little bit tiring, pull one of those jokes out, and we collect them as a family, so it's really fun to share them at Together School time. And that's a fun thing to share sometimes at the weekly show and tell. So on Friday nights, as Shabbat is coming in and family is coming, sometimes we have family, sometimes we have other people. And when it's family, when it's grandma, we really love to share those. So sometimes with my children, I've noticed that they maybe are lacking a life skill. My son got married this summer, and I realized that my 13-year-old son did not know how to tie a tie. And so it is just a good reminder. Yes, it's in our chore curriculum at Homeschooling Torah, but he hadn't gotten that part for some reason. And so we can stick it in the Together School basket that, we need to work on tying a tie. So important conversations. You might have noticed a bad attitude or whatever in your family. Instead of having to give a sermon right at the time of conflict when it's happening, you might think to yourself, you know what, we need to really do a Bible study for a week or so on kindness or whatever. And so you can write that on your sticky note, look up some verses. If your children are older in high school, have them look up the verses. You can do it in Together School time. Work on dictionary skills, work on concordance skills, right? So those are all things that you can do in Together School time. There are so many more. I hope I'm just giving you some ideas. Again, make sure you put a set time to start and end, or you will go forever and never do anything else. But this is so fun. I really enjoy Together School time. And this is not where we end. Again, we might take a break when this is done and then come back to some of our more serious studies that we need to do every day. But we do Together School for as many subjects as possible. So that's what we're going to talk about in some of the other sessions of this conference.